Are you dealing with the effects of narcissistic abuse? By the end of this video, I will give you some ideas to start using today, right now, that you can use to start feeling just a little bit better. Now, if you're dealing with a narcissist in your life, whether it's a covert narcissist, a grandiose narcissist, or a malignant narcissist, or some combination of any of those, then you're dealing with all kinds of craziness. I, I've been there too, and I know exactly the kinds of things that they do. I've represented them. I've been on the other side of them with opposing counsel, and I've had them as opposing clients. I've seen them in all different realms, and so I know the kinds of things that they do, and I know the kinds of things that you're going through. So, you're dealing with things like gaslighting, where they actually just try to make you think that they're crazy. And for those of you who don't know what gaslighting is when they say something to that is obviously completely counter to what you believe and know to be true. So, for example, they'll say something like, you agreed that we would do it this way, or we had a conversation about that, and this is what the end of that conversation was, and these are the points that we agreed on. And you'll say, no, we didn't. We never had that conversation. I mean, maybe you didn't even have the conversation at all, or maybe you had a conversation, but it didn't include that. And then you start questioning your own sanity. And that's what gaslighting is. And it's a very, very powerful form of abuse. It comes from an old movie from the 40s called Gaslight. And in that movie, the husband was actually trying to make the wife think that she was crazy. And so he would blow out these gas lights, and she would say, "Wasn't that just lit?" And he would say, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about." And that's exactly the kinds of things that narcissists do. All forms of all different types of narcissists use gaslighting as one of their little bag of trick things that they do to try to control you and manipulate you. So that's one of the things they do. Another thing that they do is manipulate you. So, and that comes in all different forms. It might be in emails, it could be in person, it could be in text or whatever, but they're constantly trying to manipulate you. They also can be condescending. They go through periods of love bombing you and then devaluing you. Love bomb, devalue, love bomb, devalue. It's a very powerful way to keep you coming back to wanting to get those love bombs back again, because you keep thinking, well, they said that I once was the most amazing person they ever met. Where's that? I know that they thought that at one point. And so you find yourself craving to get back to where you were before with the love bomb. They will ignore you. They have a lack of boundaries. You're supposed to respect their boundaries. They don't have to respect yours. So passive aggressive behaviors, this is especially true of covert narcissists. I unfortunately have had to deal with not one, but two covert narcissists that were in my close, close to me in my world. Not husbands, but people close enough that it did a lot of damage, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma. And so I know from whence I speak, and I know how horrible they can be, and absolutely it's gut wrenching. They literally drain the life out of you, these people. So I do understand that. I've made a couple of videos on covert narcissists. You're going to definitely want to check them out if you suspect that you are dealing with a covert narcissist. One of them is called Covert Narcissism in Relationships, and the other one is just passive aggressive covert narcissist. I highly recommend you watch those, and I will drop links to those below so you can check them out. Another thing that narcissists do is triangulation. And triangulation is when they try to get what we call flying monkeys on their side. It's an old reference to the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz, where she had her flying monkeys. And these are people that just are mindless or whatever. They don't understand what's going on, they don't see what's happening. And so they're just being used as pawns in the narcissist game. And it's meant to try to intimidate you, so that you think, oh, you better behave because everybody else in your world thinks that this person is amazing, or you better behave because everybody else is going to think you're the one that's crazy. So, because they're getting these people on their side. So that's what triangulation is, or flying monkeys. Obviously, lying, all narcissists are pathological liars. Lovely. And, intimidation, threats of violence, stalking, or actual violence, or some of the other things that you might see with narcissists they tend to be more like the malignant version. But if these all sound familiar and you are ready to feel better, give me an "I'm ready" in the comments. I know I was ready when I was dealing with narcissists. So when you're dealing with a narcissist and you're trying to get over one, or you're still dealing with one, it just can be brutal. They kind of just, you end up like almost obsessed with how to deal with this person. And I understand that. I've had to do it myself. So here are some of the things that worked for me. So one of the things was pivoting. So really, I very much try to not let these people rent too much free space in my head. So, when you start getting down that cycle of really focusing in on, I can't believe this person didn't see all that I gave to them, or didn't see what a good person I was. And I gave all this and they still want more, or I can't believe that they would treat me this way after all I did, because that's put yourself in victim mode. And if you're in victim mode, then you can't be in create mode. You can't be, in confident mode. You can't be in getting to the rest of your life mode. So, as fast as you can pivot out of that, I mean, deal with them the way you have to deal with them, but then, spend whatever time you have to do with that. And then the rest of the time, do not spend any more time on thinking about them. Easier said than done. So what I would do is I would have, a menu of things that I'm going to think about instead. Whether it's writing my book, which was one of the things that I finished, while I was dealing with a couple of these narcissists. So I wrote Negotiate Like You Matter. Or maybe it was, creating a program for me for people like you dealing with narcissists, or it's dealing with my law clients, or calling a friend, or calling one of my kids, or talking to my husband, or whatever, or singing a song that I love. Just anything that you can do to be thinking about something other than giving that person any more attention or space in your head. So that's pivoting. So another thing is meditation. Really just meditating, clearing your mind, even if it's 5 minutes a day, it actually starts to change your neuronal patterns. It starts to change your breathing. Sometimes when we're so stressed, we don't even realize we're not even taking oxygen into our body. So, just taking a few deep breaths just refreshes the cells in your body and gives them oxygen and gives you more energy. And just picture, as you're breathing, you're breathing in positive energy, and as you exhale, you are just releasing all that negative energy and that negative tension. So even just set your phone for 5 minutes a day. It'll make a huge difference for you. And then the third thing that you can do is raise the vibrational energy of the people that you spend time with. Don't spend time with people who bring you down. We all have vibrational energy. It's measurable. This is a law of physics. This is not a woo-woo thing. Um, and, if you are with people who are, sad or depressed or bringing you down, or who aren't supportive of you, I mean, be with people who want to fan your flames, not douse your fire. And if they want to douse your fire, then find another group of people to be with, because those aren't friends. Those aren't, even if they're family, you don't need to spend as much time with them. You want to be with people who are going to make you feel really good after you spend some time with them. Okay. Next thing is just being active. Another way to get oxygen into your brain and into your cells is, even if you just take a brisk walk around the block a couple of times a day, or go to a yoga class, or do something that's going to make you feel like like, you know, you can breathe a little bit better, you know. um, I happen to be recording this video during the time of coronavirus and this whole pandemic. So, you know, if you can't leave your house, then just, there's always YouTube, right? You're here on YouTube with me now. So find a yoga class, find something to do that will help make you feel more active. And then, you know, the last thing is kind of related to the pivoting, but it's just keep focusing on what you want and not what you don't want. So, you know, it's really easy to focus in on, I don't want this anymore. I don't want them to be acting any like this anymore. I don't want them to be in my space. I don't want them to be harassing me. Um, you know, just keep focusing on what you do want. What do you want in your life? You want to feel at peace. You want to feel in flow. You want to be surrounded by people who love you and you love them. Just keep focusing on that and just keep using that as your mantra. This is what I want. This is what I want. This is what I want. It's time for you to breathe. It's time for you to take care of yourself. It's so hard. It's emotionally draining in a relationship. So let's dive into some survival tips, some surviving life with a narcissist, especially if it's a narcissistic partner, so that you can prioritize yourself and your well-being. All right? All right. So the first thing is that you have to understand this person. You have to understand who it is that you're dealing with. And by the way, if you're dealing with this and you're feeling completely alone, make sure that you have subscribed to this channel, especially if you're just coming here for the first time, because we are building a community here and we don't want you to feel alone. We want you to feel like you are in a place where you are finding your people, where you're finding the people that are understanding who you are. Every single day, we are building a community here of people who are empaths, people who understand you. So make sure that you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we are every day releasing new videos and also announcing events and things that will help you to maybe just feel a little bit less like you're alone in the world. All right. So understanding who it is that you're dealing with. You're dealing with an emotional roller coaster. It's highs, it's lows. One day you're the best person on the planet, and the next day, you know, out of nothing, you're back to, you know, the worst person that they've ever met. And literally nothing happened. You thought that everything was resolved. So recognize those signs. They have a constant need for admiration, and they have a complete lack of empathy, a complete lack of understanding of your feelings whatsoever. All right. So, and they're never going to acknowledge you. They're never going to see your side. They're never going to see anything that you did for them. It's all about them. Right. So, you know, forget about any of those things. Forget about any of those things. So you've got to take care of yourself. Those survival tactics that you need, you know, this is like your toolkit that you have to build. And the first thing you've got to do is set those clear boundaries, define what's acceptable and what's not. You teach people how to treat you. All right. So effective, clear communication. Speak your truth without feeding their ego. All right. So avoid the blame game. You don't say to them, you did this and you did that. You just need to set down the boundary and say, you know, this is not okay. You have to speak to me with respect. And if you don't, then, you know, we don't need to have this conversation right now. You know, I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're angry. You know, the way this approach is not working for me. It's about you. It's not about them. You know, your triggers are not my responsibility. So if they say you're triggering me, well, that's not my responsibility. So prioritize your health, your well-being, you know? So if you need to take some time for yourself, you don't feel guilty for that. You cannot feel guilty for that. And you don't need to be responsible for everyone else. So many times as empaths, we feel like we need to be responsible for everyone else other than ourselves. And we pour everything we have into everyone else other than ourselves. And then we're made to feel guilty if we take any little time for ourselves, any little scrap of anything for ourselves. And you cannot feel guilty about that. And let me tell you something else. You need to forgive yourself for any sort of decision that you made at a time when you were in survival mode. You need to forgive yourself for that, because you made decisions at a time that you thought that they were right at the time. So forgive yourself for the past, and all you can do is look forward. You know, there's nothing you can do about the past. You can only look at the future. So if you need help, if you need therapy, if you need to take time for yourself, then you need to do it. I also do have a sponsor on this channel for therapy if you need help and you need access to online therapy. And that is BetterHelp. And you can go access that at betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung. Write down in the comments, I will take care of myself. I will take care of myself. So you can go find friends. You can go do a meditation class, go to yoga, and build a support system. Go to a support group. Go do things with your friends. Go have lunch with your friends. Go meet a friend in a park. Go for a walk with a friend. Start building those friendships back up again, because narcissists tend to isolate you. So if you need to reconnect with people, you need to start doing that again. Engage in activities that are going to build your self-esteem and self-worth again. So, you know, if it's, you know, running, if it's doing yoga, if it's walking around the block, if it's doing, crochet, if it's painting, if it's watercolors, if it's writing a book, whatever that is for you, even if it's completing a task. Do you know that statistically, just, writing down a list and then crossing things off that you have completed, that builds your confidence. Completing tasks builds your confidence. So remembering that you deserve respect, love, and understanding helps you. Start writing I am statements out. I am blank. I am lovable. I am a winner. I am working this out. I am getting better every day. All of those things will help you tremendously. So, anything that follows I am helps you. When you start to say things like, I can't get what I want, the narcissist always wins. Things never go my way. It's not going to happen. You're placing orders to the universe. Every time I hear somebody say that, I say, do you want to be right about that? Or would you like things to be different? Because if you would like things to be different, then you need to stop saying things like that. If you want to be right about that, congratulations. Great. You're a winner. You get to be right. But you can have things be different. But you have to choose that things are going to be different. Start manifesting that they're going to be different. So living with a narcissistic partner can be challenging. There is no doubt, but it's baby steps. I always say step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free, right? It's, you're course correcting. You're going 180 degrees difference. So that first step, don't run, is creating those boundaries. Diving deeper into those strategies is the first thing that you can do is get some phrases for disarming narcissists. And you can get those at disarmthenarc.com. I have phrases for disarming narcissists, which you can grab. Disarmthenarc.com. And those will help you just to get started. Make sure that you're connecting with people, which you can do in my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Right? And, make sure that you get some therapy if you need it. Being in a narcissistic relationship is so hard, but with the right mindset, the right tools, you can prioritize your well-being and find that balance that you need. As we close out today, remember that navigating that maze of narcissism can be tough, but making sure that you have the right resources can help. I have a book on this, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win, and Disarm the Narc will help you with those quick fire supplies. If you haven't shared this video, make sure you give it a like, give it a share. That will help others in our world, our community, our Slay Nation, get access to resources. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that now. Give it, a click over here, subscribe, hit that notification bell. So, this is a community that we're building. This is a mission that we have, right? So I'm so glad that you are here. I am so glad that you are here because this is all about us building a community together and helping each other, lifting each other up. And this is really, really, really one of the most important things that you can do when you are dealing with a narcissist, either in your personal life, in your business life, or when you are negotiating with a narcissist. Is such a really, really great tool that you will have in your toolbox. And I actually say that you can use this either as, in a way, sort of a weapon or as a shield. Because when you're dealing with a narcissist, you definitely need both. And you can use this right away and in any time when you're communicating with a narcissist. It means, in a way, is like you literally become like a boulder. And in a way, it's more like a boulder than a rock, but you can kind of think of it as gray rock. So you become devoid of emotion. You become immovable. Just think of yourself as kind of a gray rock. What does a gray rock do? What does a gray boulder do? It just sits there. It doesn't get triggered. It doesn't move. It just literally sits there. I mean, I remember doing this when I was dealing with a couple of narcissists in my life, and I didn't know the term gray rock at the time. I just kind of instinctively knew to do this. It's kind of like I knew, don't give them the satisfaction. You know that they're trying to get under your skin. You know that they want to get some kind of rise out of you. You just don't give it to them. Because what happens is they get narcissistic supply out of that. They love to see you go crazy. They love to see you get triggered. You just have to do whatever you can not to allow yourself to show that. And that's why you really need to have those boundaries. That's why you really need to keep your interactions as brief as possible, because you know that you're going to get triggered, especially if you've had a longer term relationship with them. They know how to push your buttons. They just know exactly what to do to push those buttons. So you just try to be steadfast. You try to be indifferent. So here are some good examples. They text you. They text you something where they want some big dramatic response out of you. Just write back K, just like the one letter, just the letter K, or KK. Something like that, like my teenage daughter will respond like that sometimes. I mean, she's not trying to be like gray rock to me. She'll just do that to be cute sometimes, but you can just do that. Or you can just say, okay, if that's what you want or whatever. I mean, just make it clear, like, I'm not affected by you. I am so not affected by you. I mean, I remember one time there was somebody in my family who was like really trying to get, some emotional response going on. You just like put it back on them like, oh, geez, I'm sure traveling is really stressful or something like that. Like you just like put it on them. Like, I'm sure you're really stressed out right now. You don't even like take it personally at all. Like, I'm sure you're really stressed out right now. I'm sure you must be going through a really tough time. You don't even make it seem like whatever they're saying about you has anything to do with you at all. Because a lot of times, not only do they get narcissistic supply from it, they're also trying to get you to do something that they can then use against you for custody, use against you in court to make it look like you're crazy, something like that. So, don't give that to them, because then they'll be able to show the judge, the mediator, see, I told you that person is unbalanced or bipolar or whatever it is that they're trying to say about you, right? So you got to be really, really careful about that, because there it is in black and white. You just give them that one time, or worse, they use it against you for a potential restraining order. I've seen that happen before. I mean, just that one time that you throw that one thing, or you slam that door, or you yell, and now the cops are showing up at your house and you're suddenly getting arrested for domestic violence. And there it is. You don't want to have that happen. You got to stay in control of your emotions. You got to be that gray rock, right? And especially because, if they show up at your kid's soccer game with that new form of supply or whatever, and they want you to say something so bad, you just say, oh, hello, to their new person. How are you? So nice to meet you. You just smile. Don't say a word. Don't say a word. Nothing other than that, because that is what they want. They want so much to get under your skin, so much. Think about Ted Lasso, right? I don't know if you guys watch that show, but I actually have a video, by the way, on the narcissistic characters in Ted Lasso, which you could definitely check out if you'd like. But there's actually a scene in that show where Rebecca's ex-husband comes in and he wants to just tell her about how he has gotten his new girlfriend pregnant. And you could tell that she's bothered by the fact that he did that. And he says, oh, I guess I had to, find the right person or something like that. And, it just so gets under her skin. She just doesn't want to let on. Just don't let on. That's the right thing to do, because that is exactly what they want. Don't give them the satisfaction. Don't let them see you sweat. So I want you to put that in the comments right now. Don't let them see you sweat, because that's what they want. Go scream in the shower, go cry in the shower, scream in your pillow, do whatever you need to do, but you are a gray rock in front of their face. That's what you have to do. I mean, you just, in front of their face, you just smile. Even when they're gaslighting you and they're saying things, like, we had that conversation and this is how it went. I want you to smile and say, oh, you just obviously aren't remembering correctly. Oh, you just must not remember, or we remember it differently. Just say it like that. We just remember it differently. And, we can agree to disagree. And that's it. And you can just smile and walk away. The rest of what you want to say can just be silent. Just fill in the blanks silently in your head. And you don't have to say it out loud. Karma never forgets. She's got a very long memory, and karma always comes back around, because what goes around comes around. My dad used to say, be careful what you throw up in the air, because it will come back down on your head. And it definitely does. You can just say, like, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's fine, just because we disagree, you don't have to be disagreeable. That's totally fine too.
And you can fake it. I call it ethically manipulating the manipulator. You don't have to be anything other than whole and complete, and you are planted firmly in your power. You know who you are, and this is you knowing who you are, right? And yeah, it can be exhausting. It can be draining. And that's why you keep those interactions as brief as possible. I mean, you really don't want to spend a whole lot of time around this person because they do want to drain you. They do want to trigger you. They're constantly needling you. They're constantly trying to get some kind of reaction out of you, because that's what feeds them. That's their food. That's their lifeblood. That's their oxygen. If they don't get that, then they're going to try to, slither on down the road to get it from somebody else. It's their way. It's how they're built. And you're not going to change that. You're never going to change that. I recently had a conversation with Marissa Peer, who's one of the most renowned therapists in the world. She won't even counsel narcissists. She won't even take them in her practice. You know why? Because she knows she can't change them. Think about that. She knows that there's nothing she can do for them. She'll help the people who've been traumatized by them because she knows that she can help them. She knows that she can do something for them, but she can't help the narcissist. You know why? Because they have no self-awareness. They can't be helped. They can't be saved. So if the therapist who does hypnotherapy, who literally trains thousands of therapists all over the world, cannot help them, you cannot help them. You can't do it. You literally do not have the tools to do it. So what can you do when you're around them? You can just go gray rock. You use that as your shield. You use that as your weapon. You say, okay, if that's what you want to think, sure, I agree with you, great, whatever. You just give them nothing, because you know why? They get bored. They get bored with a gray rock eventually. They're not interested in the gray rock. They don't care about the gray rock anymore. They move on from the gray rock because they want supply. They're not getting it from something that's not giving them any kind of feedback. My husband and I used to have somebody in our family who was, like trying to get a rise out of somebody. And then as soon as the person would finally be upset, like angry, like on the verge of tears, this person would be like, oh, now we're having a conversation. All right, now we're getting going. This is good. What? Yeah, but to that person, that's what that meant, because that person was finally getting fed. You don't want to be food for a narcissist. That's no fun. So just, become a gray rock. Protect yourself. Use that as your shield. You don't go to war without weapons. You don't get ahead in battle without weapons. You don't go to war without a shield to protect yourself, right? And when you're in battle with a narcissist, you need weapons. When you're dealing with a narcissist, it's either black or white. That's how they see things. You're either for them or you're against them. When you're in that discard phase, you are definitely against them because you become public enemy number one. So when it becomes time to say goodbye, they want to make sure that you go down before they go down. They want the whole world to see that you were wrong. This is when you see the birth of the smear campaign, right? So you got to have protection, and your protection will be that gray rock. Just become a gray rock. So no more supply, no supply for you, because you are no longer giving yourself to someone who doesn't deserve it.
Yeah. So what advice would you give people to just start like today? Like, I'm just so feeling like crap today. I'm totally being pummeled by that narcissist in my life. And I don't even want to even think about eating, or the only thing I want to think about eating is crap, or exercise just seems like such a luxury. what do we do? How do we start?
Yeah, so I have what I call the 5-minute commitment. And that is just committing to 5 minutes for movement, whether it be at the gym, in a workout area in your house, putting on a YouTube video, whatever that looks like, whatever feels good to you to do, because you want it to be fun and playful. So you just commit to 5 minutes. And if after that 5 minutes you still don't feel like doing the workout, being at the gym, you just give yourself permission to leave. But most of the time, and I think you guys can all agree, the hardest part's getting there or starting. So once you start doing that, once you get there, you're more likely, nearly 100% of the time, to actually stay there and like, oh, I just needed to get moving. I just needed to like get changed. I just needed to put these like beats in my ears. And suddenly you've worked out and it's one of the best workouts you've had of the week.
Yeah, I mean, I have found, like, even for myself, hey, it's COVID. So a lot of times you're just home by yourself or whatever, or maybe it's just you and your kids or whatever.
Mhm.
Put on like some kind of dance music. Just say,
Yeah.
Alexa, put on dance music. I better not say that too loud or it's going to happen. Because was downstairs.
Put on Bieber. Yeah.
Yeah, put on something fun. And then you just like dance a little bit and who cares? No one's going to see you. And it just gets like the blood flowing and the juices flowing. And you just feel better. Like, because you just had like 5 minutes of fun. Right. And if you've got little kids or whatever, just have them join in the dance party too.
My kids love doing that. We set up circuits. So like one of us will have weights, one has a band, and then the other has like boxing gloves. So of course my son loves to just, goes for, I'm like, full song, you gotta go for a full song. And he's like, oh, by the end, like these are heavy.
Yeah, but it's like fun, right? Okay, so somebody has a question. Lynn has a question. What about timing in the day, like early in the day versus the afternoons? What do you think about that?
Sure. I mean, obviously there are better times of day to work out based on hormones and metabolism and things like that. But here's the thing, the best time of day to work out is the one that's going to get done. So if you know, based on what you've observed in your patterns and the way that you operate, oh, end of the day, I tend to be very tired and I just want to relax, or the kids are home or dinner needs to be made, there's a lot of things going on, then chances are that's probably not a good time for you to work out. Or even after dinner, maybe you're having trouble unwinding. So knowing that you're going to support yourself in getting in a workout that feels really good, the best time might be the morning. So I would say the best time that supports you based on the time you're most likely to do it is going to benefit you the most.
Yeah. And it might even be like in between things, like, especially if you're working from home or whatever, like, maybe you just kind of put a timer on your phone and you go, after an hour, I'm going to get up. I'm going to go get some water.
Yeah.
I'm going to go like, and then just like dance for a little bit or walk your dog or, even
you can do time blocking. That definitely helps, especially where there's more gray area with us working from home. That's actually been a really tough adjustment mentally and emotionally for a lot of people, because the feelings they've already had and things that they were kind of sitting with, they were able to busy themselves and go places and do things. And now it's just sort of, amplifying the things that are already there, such as, oh, I find myself in my pantry 10 times a day and I'm not even hungry, or I have no boundaries because I don't have a home office and everything's just sort of blurring together. So doing the time blocking may really support a schedule and routine, again, that just energetically lets you shift into different modes. So that's a great point, Rebecca.
Yeah. Okay. And so how about food? Like, what would you suggest about eating?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are like, I don't have money to buy like everything organic or whatever. Like, what would you suggest about that?
Yeah, so I teach a lot based on the principles of intuitive eating. And so the cool thing is that I teach you to listen to yourself and identify what is self, what is that voice. So for example, it would look like if you're in the pantry or if you're in the refrigerator, just having a pattern interrupt. And so that looks like step one of, do I want food right now? Am I hungry? And the answer may be yes, maybe no. But if the answer is yes, then you get to honor that. So that's step one, just having a pattern interrupt. Then it becomes, what do I want to have? So in that moment, it's like, okay, am I just trying to eat something out of convenience here that might be a little bit more carb heavy, that's not super nutrient dense? Or do I have a little extra time here that I can support myself, knowing that I'm going to feel better after I eat a salad energetically with some protein and healthy fats on there? So really, again, being intentional and tapping in and asking self, what is it in this moment that would support me and what feels good?
And what about like having, and that's great advice, by the way. And it's like so much easier than like, okay, you have to go out and buy all this like certain diet food or whatever, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
what about like for like a grab and go or like an easy sort of a thing? Like,
Mhm.
because to me, like sometimes I think, oh, I should eat a salad, but I don't feel like making like it's just like a lot of work, right? So
Mhm.
what
Yeah.
what would be good?
Well, I love this because it's really a simple pre-frame, like it's just an adjustment here. So I actually had a client time for me. She goes, "Oh, Uber Eats is just more convenient." I said, "Okay, well, let's time it from the moment you sit down with your husband and decide on what you're going to eat and get it to your door versus having food already in your refrigerator that you can grab and go and just cook. What's shorter?" Turns out cooking was shorter, and so it was actually more convenient. But we have this idea that ordering food because we're not making it is more convenient. So choose which convenient you want to anchor into. The other thing is really just, again, adjusting the framework around what is a fast food. Fast food is typically a drive through, or maybe you think of McDonald's, maybe you think of Starbucks, or something that you grab at a gas station, like a donut or a hot dog or something. But if you look around, I challenge you to actually look at the other fast foods because most gas stations have bananas and apples and hard boiled eggs. So it's really just, oh, wait, this is equally as fast, but I'm actually choosing this other societally labeled like fast food, right? So it's just a simple pre-frame.
Totally. I love that. I love that. And it is true. I mean, there are times that you go into the gas station or whatever, there's a whole stack of bananas there, right? I mean, it's
They're
definitely,
always right there. And you're like, oh,
yeah.
I'm going to go get this instead.
But like the nachos are right there.
Yeah.
I'm loving that Michael is saying fight off procrastination. The right time is now. I love that.
Mm,
And I want to acknowledge Nikki, who also said that she attended my 2 hour as well. It was awesome.
amazing.
How awesome is that?
They're just
Love
soaking all
you
the goodness
guys.
up.
You are the best. Okay, so Lynn is asking
Mhm.
about some good protein choices. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, if you enjoy certain proteins and it's easy for you to cook, then go for those. I am again like in the vein of like if you're going to eat it and you enjoy it, you're more likely to continue that. And if you're likely to continue that, you create consistency, sustainability, and you keep doing it because it feels good and it's easy. Because I want to set you up for success. So the protein that you get to eat is the ones that you like, and you get to be creative with it. So again, ones that I love are salmon. I just love to bake that in the oven, wrapped in some foil. You can put it over a bed of just, julienne carrots. You can also do some baked chicken or do crock pot chicken or instant pot, whatever is, again, I'm not fancy in the kitchen. I'm just like soup, whatever's easy. But those are my go-tos, and I love having tacos. So I will do like an organic ground beef with tacos and whip it up with like avocado and all of the yummy goodness, black beans, and put it in a nice whole wheat wrap.
I love that. That sounds so good. Okay, so somebody is asking, what do you think of keto diets?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the person. Do certain diets work? Yeah, until they don't, right? So it's the key is, and the reason why we want to perhaps steer away from a specific diet is if we can't see ourselves doing it forever, literally, it's probably going to be temporary then. And if it's going to be temporary, what do you think will happen after you're done with that diet? You will either seek another one, or there will be this kind of roller coaster effect where you're either on or off. So for that reason, I really don't advise clients to go into any diet unless, of course, there is, I have to say, the doctor's orders or some other medical disclaimer around like something specific that you are trying to work through with medical support. But yeah, diets don't work because they work until they don't.
Yeah, it's so hard to stay on them, you
Right. And that's
know?
the point. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
you can create a sustainable lifestyle and maybe take some things, if you like keto and you feel good doing this or you feel good doing that, and just kind of custom build what feels good to you, you're going to keep doing it. And man, that feels so much more liberating than like the shackles of I can't have this and I can't have that, and operating from the space of just obedience.
I know my husband always says, I need black and white. I need to know I can eat this, I can't eat that. Okay, so Urzabet, I hope I'm saying that right. Urzabet, where are you from, Urzabet? I want to know where you're from. So she says, I think it's a she, but she says, I like to cook, but sometimes I'm too depressed. to cook. And that makes sense because, you know, I know what you're dealing with, right?
Totally.
So
Yeah.
she goes, I know when I cook, I make better quality food than anything I can order and there's less rubbish. But what would you say to her?
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to send you so much love and thank you for sharing that. And, you know, we just support you in this moment that is challenging and just hold some space for you there. But I would, if you're able to, either two things, music that makes you feel good, really releases
Oh, I
some
like
feel
that.
good hormones. So put something that feels good on and can maybe help you shift your mood. And another thing I would encourage you to do is maybe just to kind of put your hand on your heart. And I'm very spiritual and I guide my
I'm
clients
going
this
to
way
do it
as
right
well.
now with you.
Yeah, we can just close our eyes and we can connect to our heart center. And I want you to actually step into
Everybody
the
who's
being.
watching right now, do it with us. Okay.
Yes,
I want to see that you're doing it.
amazing. So hand on heart, you're going to close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, I want you to look down towards your heart center because we're looking away from our thoughts of what we think we are, right? This identity, these feelings. Just look down towards your heart. And then you can anchor into the feeling of how good it feels after you know you've cooked. So if you know that experience, right, just like it feels good to go to the gym, that moment after you finish the workout, accomplishment, success, contentment, support, self-love, feel that before the experience occurs, and you're more likely to just close the gap there.
Beautiful. So beautiful. So, Michael is also suggesting meal prep, like, especially for when I'm getting my little one on my days off. It works out so much better when having a toddler. So, that's a great suggestion,
Mhm.
Michael, as well. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions. Somebody said, Nikki's saying, dance like nobody's watching. So
Or if people are,
true.
that's fine too.
Yeah. Oh, Crosby's saying Rebecca is my hero. You are my
Oh,
hero.
you
You
are
guys
so
all
loved.
watching are my heroes because the fact that you're showing up over here and you're trying to help yourself, that means that you have taken steps to better yourself, that you are taking steps to break free and create a new life for yourself. So you guys are the heroes, truly. And the fact that you're here listening to Carrie and like picking up ways to take care of yourself, acknowledge yourself for that because that takes so much, especially when you're stuck in these relationships. So
Yeah.
really, really awesome.
You know, I grew up pretty poor. My mom was a single mom with 4 kids, working 3 jobs. For a bit, we lived in a trailer behind my grandparents' home in Worcester, Massachusetts. And just from age 9 or 10, I started with a paper route and then got into bussing tables and then waitressing and then bartending, really building up a skill set in sales, you know, and customer service through my teen years. And that led me to getting into sales when I finally graduated college and going to work for the Gallo Winery and just taking this drive and want to create revenue and access revenue because that had been our struggle, you know, at a younger age for me. That really became my total focus in business.
Yeah. And you were really like driven. You were really driven to like get over that poverty and make money. And you also had success early in your career, like by the age of 24, you were already really successful. Tell us about that.
So it was an interesting way that I fell in, but I graduated college, went to work at the Gallo Winery, outworked everybody, became the #1 seller on the team, and was promoted to brand manager for the state. And I ended up being sexually harassed by my new boss, and I wasn't confident at the time, so I just quit the job and went out looking for something new to escape a really bad situation at work. And I met a great gentleman who ended up being my #1 business mentor, took me under his wing and taught me the radio business within a year. And so I had become his #1 seller. We were killing it together. Things were going great at work. And I came home one day and my boyfriend, who now that I look back on probably was a narcissist, had cheated on me. I moved out. I did not have family near me anymore. I was completely devastated. I went to work and my boss saw that something was really wrong with me. He sat down to hear what was going on. And after I told him, he said, "Would you be willing to board a plane with me, sight unseen, move somewhere? I'm not going to tell you where, only if you're willing to go to make a name for yourself and make a lot of money. I'll have you be my equity partner. And I was, very young. I was in my early 20s, 22, 21 years old. I don't remember anymore. And I said yes, because to me, I wanted to escape the situation of having to run into the boyfriend that broke my heart. And, I just wanted to get out of a negative environment. However, at the time, I didn't know it. I was knee deep in what I thought was an awful situation. And you can't see these things in the moment. You can only see them when you look back on your life. But these dots connect to taking me down a path that I never would have gone on had this man not cheated on me. And it ended up being this huge blessing that he gave me, which pushed me into my career. So I jumped on a plane with my mentor, sight unseen, and he dropped me off in Saginaw, Michigan, which, if you've never been to Saginaw, I've been living right outside of Boston for years, and I was not used to a rural community. They used to call me LA because I had a full set of teeth. That was kind of the joke when I got to town. So it was a new experience, but I was there. He was clear with me on expectations. You're there to create revenue and accelerate revenue as fast as you can. We bought an operation, a $25 million company. And my job was to accelerate revenues for the organization as quickly as I could so we could flip the company and net a profit for myself and for my partners. I was a very small equity partner. My partners had more share in the organization, but I was the only one living at the operation in Michigan. And I would just communicate with my boss, my partner, on the phone at night and on the weekends. And I worked 7 days a week for 2.5 years and greatly accelerated revenues, such that we sold that company for $55 million in under 3 years, netting myself and my partners a $30 million profit, and really putting my name on the map in the media business as a revenue generator.
Total badass.
Or I don't know, or total crazy girl that gave up years, right? I made a lot of sacrifice those years where my friends were getting married and going on vacations and starting to have kids, in their mid-20s, and I was working. So it's definitely choices and a commitment to certain goals, but it paid off. It definitely gave me what I wanted, which was financial freedom.
Well, but did you get married and have kids in that time frame too, or no?
No, years later, I got married for a very short window of time, had one child, and that was a wrap.
And that was what?
That was a wrap.
A wrap.
One and done, one child. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. And okay. And so then what happened? Something happened in your career then at that point.
I decided to take a step backwards in order to leap forwards. I went to a publicly traded company in Naples, Florida, because I saw an opportunity within a much larger organization. And like many companies, they might not feel comfortable until they trust and know someone bringing them in at a higher level. So I took a big step backwards, financially, title wise, responsibility wise, just in this belief that, okay, I'm going to go down there, show them what I can do. They'll see quickly and they'll elevate me quickly. And that did end up happening. I was responsible initially for one of their small markets, Naples, Florida. And after I
Which
did
is
really,
so funny,
really well,
by the way, because like I was living in Naples, Florida at the same time, which is so crazy.
it's so ironic that we were both there at the same time and didn't know each other. I turned that marketplace around. This was a national media company. I turned that marketplace around.
What was
I
the
called a
company, by the
meeting.
way?
Beasley Media Group.
Oh yeah, I knew it had to be Beasley. I knew it had to be Beasley. I think I knew people who
So
were working there at the time, by the way.
Oh my gosh, it's a small world, my friend.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, totally.
So I called the president of the company. I had him meet me for lunch. We sat down for lunch and I pitched him on a position that I thought would add tremendous value to the company, make him look amazing, drive revenue and income for the shareholders and value for the shareholders. And he said no. So I didn't have a child back then. I didn't have a lot of responsibility. So I started dialing for other opportunities. I landed another really big job back in Boston. I called the president of the company again and we met again for lunch. And I said, have you thought about my idea? And he said, I have, but I really like you in the position you're in. And I said, well, then I'm resigning today. I'm going to take this really big job in Boston. And he said, what? Hang on. And he left the restaurant. came back in 5 minutes later and said, I'm here to award you the newly created position for the company, VP of Sales. And I said, wait a minute, where did you just go? And he said, oh, I had to go call my father. I am not empowered to make decisions like that on my own. And he taught me such a powerful lesson that day, that don't ever take a no from someone who can't give you a yes, and qualify decision makers before you go into a meeting. Because in the end, once that proposal was put in front of the right person, I did get the yes and I got promoted.
Oh, yeah. So, but then there's something that happened. I want to get to the narcissist in your life.
The sneaky narcissist. Yeah. As I kept getting promoted, and the CEO I worked for was a male, the president of the company was a male. However, the only other peer from the executive level that was a female was our CFO. And along the way, the higher I would rise, the less and less she would like me. Right at first, it was, oh, great, happy to have you here. As I entered into the executive team, but then I got promoted to executive vice president. Then I got promoted to chief revenue officer, and she and I were at the exact same level. And during that time, I thought to myself, I'm making her a little uncomfortable. I could sense that there was something that she liked less and less about me. And so I started somewhat turning a blind eye to her bad behavior, passive aggressive, not responding to emails, not including me in meetings I should be included in. And instead of really owning my voice and
and by the way, that is so covert narcissist behavior. Passive aggressiveness is total covert narcissist behavior. And then when you call them out on, not including you on meetings, it's like, oh, I thought that I had included you, and it's like that plausible deniability. Oh, I didn't include you on that. Oh, I thought I did, that sort of thing. Where, oh, and everybody else thinks that they're super nice. So that they, at least the ones that I had dealt with.
Oh yeah, because this person definitely treated me differently than she treated other people. I mean, she would enter into a meeting and almost hug people and welcome them. And when I would walk in, she wouldn't even say hello or acknowledge my presence. And, over time, I started noticing it was chipping away at my confidence. I was becoming more of a B-rate version of myself because I felt so uncomfortable entering into these situations. Even just a basic meeting, I always felt, as the odd man out. However, I had really allowed that to happen by turning a blind eye to her behavior, not acknowledging it. And finally, one day I woke up and I just said, I've had enough of this, in my own mind.
I want to stop you there, because that is so, so important. You're like, you're saying stuff that's so, so important that I want to mention, because they condition you. And what you're saying is something that I want to make sure that I highlight for people, that they understand. It's that conditioning, because when you're a person who is an empathic person, a good person, a nice person, a normal person, it's like, you're not sure if you should say something. You're not sure if you should bring it up. And it's like, is it something that you should call out? Is it something big enough that you should say, you don't want to make waves, so you don't end up, calling it out. And then you end up kind of almost being conditioned. And that person, oh, look, I got away with it. I got away with this. I got away with that. And then it happens again and again, over time, and you end up sort of being conditioned. I got away with not inviting her to this meeting. I got away with not including her on that email. I got away with this. And then, over time, it was several things that happened, but you were conditioned over time. And that's what they end up doing, is this conditioning, where you were allowing this to happen, but not intentionally allowing it to happen. I mean, and that's what I want people to understand. It's like, people feel bad about themselves, or they feel like, oh, how did I let this happen? How did it, but it's because it's these little things. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. It's like, do I say something about that little thing? Oh, I wasn't included on this email. That seems so stupid, to bring that up. It's like, But then it's these little things over time. And so I just want to make sure that I highlight this because this is so typical, especially of a covert narcissist.
And what's interesting to that point, and thank you for highlighting that, is that I would also reach out to people around her to say, am I crazy? I would go to her brother who I had a better relationship with and say, am I crazy? I feel like she just keeps cutting me out. What's going on? Because I was looking for some validation or clarity. I truly felt so confused. I didn't want to think the worst, especially earlier on. The longer it went on, the more clear it became to me. But I would go to her brother and he would say, oh, you know her. She's being annoying. She's probably jealous. Don't worry. Women. He would say that too. Women can't put two women
Yes,
together.
and that's what they do, and they just sort of poo-poo it, and you think you're going crazy. And by the way, they end up, they're like watching you. They're just observing you all the time. They're watching you, watching you, watching you, and they almost like want to become you. They almost like want to, like, they have this like fixation and this obsession over you because they're so like, in some ways there's an admiration of you at the same time that they're super jealous of you. That's was my experience of it as well.
Oh, it's so true. And it's funny. I look back earlier in my career when I first came to the company, this woman was such an introvert, the typical CFO you would think of, literally with a calculator running around, not speaking to anyone. I'm very much an extrovert leading a sales organization. So I'm forward facing. My job is to communicate and make people feel comfortable and create relationships. So we were complete opposites. However, during my tenure and as I would advance, I started noticing, wow, she's starting to give speeches at meetings. That's weird. She's dressing differently. That's weird. I didn't notice it until one day, I will never forget. She was winning some award. I was at the event. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm in awe of this woman. She is nothing. She doesn't look like, act like, speak like, dress like the person I met here 10 years ago. So I went up to her to ask. I said, listen, I've got to ask you a question. You've literally, like a flower, I've seen you when you were closed when I got here, open up and bloom before my very eyes. As another woman in business, and I was a little bit younger than her, I said, could you give me some advice? How can I follow along your path and try to learn in my way how I could, expand myself? And she looked at me and said, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I remember that cocktail party. And then she said, but if I come up with any idea that something hits me, I'll let you know in the future. And I said, okay. And I remember leaving feeling bad about myself that evening and thinking, Heather, here you are thinking she did some special thing. She was just being herself, which left me feeling like I don't have that within me. However, fast forward a couple of years, I was a lot smarter. I was more exposed to the world, and I had friends who were running at a much higher level, and they started telling me, I hired a publicist, Heather. Hired a personal shopper. I hired a stylist. I hired a speaking coach. I hired an executive coach. My friends started telling me everything that this woman had been doing right before me, but she, instead of like my friends telling me they're doing it, she was trying to keep it a secret and make me think that I'm crazy.
Yeah, so she didn't want you to have the secret sauce, of course, right? Yeah, she's not going to tell you because she doesn't want you to be better. But then
it's so obvious now.
Yeah, but then what did she end up doing?
Well, I ended up she was my peer, so there really wasn't anything she could do to me for a long time. Her father became ill and she became interim CEO, which means you're somewhat have the title, but you don't have all the power. She would still have to defer to the ultimate CEO chairman for approval on certain things. So she made my life a living hell, basically, in the next year. I launched a personal brand, forward facing. I made all my profiles public in an effort to try to attract talent to the company. I was always trying to recruit new and better people. That made my life easier. And so this was a strategy I implemented, which was brilliant at the time. No one was doing it in my industry. I was attracting so much talent to the company, but at the same time, I was turning my light up, right? I was getting noticed. I started winning more awards. I started getting asked to speak on bigger stages, and she hated that. And so she had the GC contact me, threatening me that you can't have a personal brand. It's a conflict of interest. Read your contract. And I had already done my due diligence. I had hired an attorney. I knew that I had every right to do this, and I would put whatever verbiage they wanted on. I would address, it was just so ridiculous that I was every day, being basically attacked for doing nothing wrong. So in the end, she ended up getting the ultimate title, CEO, when her father became ill enough. And when that happened, she fired me immediately.
Fired you, like boom, like that. You had made so much money for the company and did all this stuff, and yeah, just fired you. And then
Yeah,
so
she said there was no need for my position any longer, so the company no longer needed me.
yeah. And then so how did you feel? Like, tell us about that. You went home and what?
It was a horrible situation, but I was so sick of being bullied by this woman that on our last meeting where she actually did terminate me, I pulled the rug out from underneath her. I was so sick of being bullied in her really passive aggressive way that she tried to pressure me in the meeting to sign a non-disparaging agreement to protect herself and protect her company, to ensure I never shared any of the things that I share now publicly. And I refused it. I said, I'm not interested in, and you standing there trying to hold a paycheck over me doesn't work anymore. And to see her face change physically, the color, the complete dynamic in the room was changed instantaneously when I declined her offer and stood up with a lot of class and walked out without getting angry, without getting mad. Of course, I got to my car and I was bawling my eyes out because I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills. But in that moment, I took back all the confidence that I had lost over those years, and I felt so proud of myself.
Yeah. And I want to point out to everybody, you just like sucked her leverage away. Like, cause she wanted that, like, she wanted to see you squirm. She wanted to see, that to hold that power over you. And you just sucked that away from her. And I love the fact that you didn't show that like emotion in front of her, which is something that I tell people all the time. Like, get to your car, scream, cry, whatever, in your pillow, at home, in your shower, whatever. But in that moment, you were like, no, don't give them that power in that moment. Right. So you get home and I heard you say like, you were like under a weighted blanket for like, whatever, like you felt like the world had come to an end, but it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to you. So talk about that.
It did. The first thing once I came to and came out from the weighted blanket and crying was I decided no one knows I'm fired. She was keeping it a secret, right? And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to go promote that I've been fired, which a lot of people thought was crazy, told me not to do it. I checked in with the one voice that counts, your own. And to me, I said, for me, this is the right thing. I'm going to reframe getting fired. And I Googled who is successful that's been fired. Turns out J.K. Rowling, Oprah, Mark Cuban, Steve Jobs, the list goes on and on. I decided to see it as in good company, right? This is the level you want to roll at. You need to get fired. So I posted, I've just been fired. It's a really challenging situation. If I've ever helped you, I need to hear from you now. And I asked for help. And that post went viral, landed me on the Elvis Duran show. And halfway through that interview, he said to me, obviously you're writing a book, Heather. But I wasn't, I hadn't thought anything out yet. And so him believing in me and transferring that confidence in me led me to Google, how do you write a book? And all I have to do is sit down and write. And I knew I could do that. So 5 months later, I launched Confidence Creator, it went #1 on the Amazon business biography list. And at the time, Donald Trump was president and it moved his book to #2. So I trumped Trump for #1 on the business biography list the first week my book came out.
So awesome. I want to just briefly talk about your 5 Ds because I think that these are so good.
Yeah. Yep. So it's the 5 Ds in a relationship, but it's not, these 5 Ds can apply to any relationship.
Yeah.
It can apply to a work relationship.
Yeah.
And the first one is distort.
So these are the 5 Ds that are negative forces in a relationship.
Yep. So distort. That D, what does it do? It tells lies. It plants negative thoughts in you, right? It makes you think negative things. So the thing that I always say, and so let's apply it to your relationship. You could think, oh, he doesn't love me anymore. He doesn't think I'm pretty. Well, that's distortion, right? those are lies. It's the lies that you're just listening to negative lies. And so speak truth to the lies, right? The minute you start hearing those kind of things coming in, speak truth. Just, I literally, the minute I do that, sometimes I even verbally go, stop. And I'll say something positive to myself, or I'll think a positive thought. Does that make sense? So you've got to.
We are meaning making machines, right?
Yeah.
We make things mean things that don't mean that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's a big one. So distortion in a relationship, in any relationship, is not good. And the next one is discourage. Okay. So your distortions can turn into discouragement. Oh, I'm not good enough for him. So you start to play this thing in your mind. I'm not worthy. So no, then you need to turn it around. Encourage yourself, again, encourage your partner. So it may be that it's your partner. Like I said, he wanted to come in. I wanted to cut him down and discourage him, but instead I encouraged him. So you've got to turn that one around. So first D's distort, second D's discourage, and the third one is doubt, right? So lies and discouragement lead to doubt yourself, to doubt God's plan for you, to doubt your direction, to doubt the love that your partner might have for you. So the way to counter doubt is through trust. So when John had shared with me that he, had done this infidelity, at that point, I can continue to doubt. The minute he was going out, I could have doubted him. But for me, I knew that I had to trust. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying trust without something to back it up. They need to give you something to trust, right? But just make sure it's not things you're kind of just, coming up with in your own head. And the fourth D is distract. And this is such a big one because think about it. If you are busy or your partner's busy, say you're busy doing all the things that you need to do to take care of your household or take care of the kids or make money, and you're feeling, kind of unappreciated, and all of a sudden somebody kind of comes into your life that tells you how wonderful you are, how, it's a distraction. Or, a lot of times for men, and women, it can be pornography. Something that distracts you and just seems shiny and bright, and distraction from your relationship. You need to be careful of that because, that there's that whole saying, if the devil doesn't make you busy, and you're right. If the devil doesn't make you bad, he'll make you busy. So it's a distraction. Mm-hmm. And then the fifth one is divide. And that divide, if it's in a relationship or in a marriage, I should say, the divide means divorce. And so you have to guard yourself against those 5 Ds. And so it's about counteracting each one of them. And the divide, again, if you two are connected as a couple, you can really negate a lot of that. It's when you're not united. Again, it's when you're doing the I and not the we. So those are the 5 Ds.
Right. And again, we stress, obviously, if you are in an abusive relationship, if you are in a situation where your partner is a narcissist,
right,
and not willing to change, and being verbally or emotionally abusive to you, then clearly and not willing to be a we.
Right. And in that case, then you need to walk away from the relationship. And I'm not one to say, leave the relationship, but there are deal breakers. And exactly what you just named, those are deal breakers. If they're not willing to change, if they're not willing to look at themselves, if they're not willing to be honest, right? That's huge. Here's an example. And it can be, you come up with your own guidelines, but say your partner has cheated on you or has shown that they've been distracted. Maybe for building trust, you can look at their phone. Now, some people might think that's a violation, but you know what? If that's something that you two negotiate and say, you know what, it just would make me feel better until I can trust you. One of the things that John did do, I got to tell you, I persecuted him, and rightly so. I mean, I was so hurt and I felt very, very, deceived, right? So when John really he was working towards being in the relationship and being a good partner, I was allowed to look at his phone whenever I wanted to, and I hand it over. And now some people might feel like, oh well, that's that in itself. For me, it was very important. It was very important for me to look and see what was going on because I needed to build that trust. So, your partner has to be willing to do, and, you have to negotiate those together.
Yeah.
Depending on what they are.
And so what does that mean for you? And one of the things that I like is that you have this list of things like what is, a perfect partner for you. And I think that that's an important thing for people. Okay, if they're not going to stay in this relationship, what does that look like going forward? And in some ways it's sort of a manifestation exercise.
Yeah. I always say I did my best relationship work when I was not in a relationship. So, I mean, I dated some real winners before I met John. And wow, I dated an incredible narcissist. He was a piece of work, but I mean, he brought me to my knees. I mean, there was a lot of pain and a lot of crying, but I was able to work on myself a lot. And I think that's why when John started exhibiting these behaviors, I didn't cave and I didn't fold and I didn't go down, because I saw it for what it was. And I had done enough work on myself where I'm like, hey, that's not okay. This behavior is not okay. And I'm having to teach my daughter that. She actually got into a relationship with a narcissist. And I watched as he started to look better and do better. The more she kept feeding into him, this guy ended up it was amazing to see the transformation in him. And it was sickening to see the transformation in my daughter. She absolutely did not look like herself. She didn't act like herself. It was a really sad thing. It was almost like he sucked the lifeblood out of her, so
oh, yeah, I saw it in my daughter as well.
Yeah. So you have to be careful of that. So you should always be working on yourself. And yeah, listen, make a list of what's important to you in a relationship and pay attention. Some of this is really basic, right? But we forget because we get so taken back by maybe the good looks or the charisma. It's the same thing that I tell my kids, when they were going to school. I used to say, if you are in a group of people or you're with somebody and you walk away and you don't feel good, they're not your people. They're not your people. So you always have to pay attention to that. Yeah. So it's very important to do the work on yourself when you're not in a relationship.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to say is stop trying to make not your people your people.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and so you have the 4 C's, which I love for, if you don't have it in your current relationship, then I think it's totally a deal breaker. And, this is something that you definitely want in your next relationship. So talk about that. And I think that that's like a good way for us to wrap up.
Okay. So the first of the 4 C's is communicate. I said it. I've said it a couple times in this interview. I'm going to say it again. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Where there's a void in negativity, where there's a void in communication, negativity will fill it. So I always like to encourage couples to find a time that works for you. So I knew with my husband, right when he was walking in the door, was not a good time to try to communicate with him. So find your sweet spot. And I've had to find that with my kids. What's the best time to talk to them where they really open up to me? So communicate. One of the things you can do as a couple, ask your spouse or ask your partner on a scale of 1 to 10, how do I communicate? And what would make it a 10? Right? That's an easy one. So the next C is connect. And you have to communicate to connect. And again, that sounds like an obvious one, but think about it. When you get really busy with work and with kids and, maybe starting a new business, whatever it is, you don't take as much time to connect. So try to find a time that works for you all to connect. Now, one of the things that I did with my husband is we would take a walk. And I got to tell you, sometimes these walks, we would fight. But by the end of the walk, we ended up working out a lot. So sometimes it's just about that movement and the talking that we were able to talk a lot. And one of the things that I highly recommend that people do with their family is a family meeting. Once a week, we would get together with our children and sit around the table. And I'm going to tell you something, it was not easy. There were times we'd go family, or John would say family meeting, or maybe I would start it depending. And, the eyes would roll and everybody had to put their phones down. But Rebecca, I'm going to tell you something. It was fascinating to me. John or I would bring something to the table to read. A lot of times it might be maybe scripture or an article that somebody had written. And it never failed that something one of us was going through, we wouldn't know the kids were experiencing. This article would just open up the channels for us to have a conversation. And it made our family dynamic and our connection with each other so strong. We became such a stronger family. The only regret that I have about family meetings is I didn't start soon enough. So even if it's just you and your spouse or your mate, do it. So that's communicate, connect, and the next one is commit. Commit to your relationship. Commit to work on it. Commit to, and it could be little things. So, there's been a study that the strongest relationships are when each of the partners take time to listen to their spouse or help them with something. And I'm talking little things. So John might be writing an article and he might call me into his office and say, hey, can you just read this real quick? And I'm going to tell you something. Last thing I want to do is sit down at that moment and read through his article. But I know it's important to him. And so I'll take that 5 minutes to sit and read the article and give my input. So it's committing to the relationship. It might mean going to a company party with your spouse when you really have no desire to hang out with the work, the work people. So commit to your relationship. And then the last one is care. Show you care. Isn't it funny how a lot of times in relationship, our spouse is like the last one we give the love to. And we kind of talked about that in the 5 Ds too, but showing that you care about them, that you care about the relationship. So, and that's the whole it's we, not me. So Those are the 4 C's: communicate, connect, commit, and care. And those apply to not just intimate relationships. Again, can apply to work relationships, any of that.
Friendships.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. 8 ways to remain unfazed, untriggered by those big hairy bullies themselves. Well, they might not be hairy, but they're definitely bullies. I know I've been dealing with them a lot all my life, but I definitely know how to remain untriggered and unfazed by them at this point because I have seen them. I've seen them all. I've seen the worst of them in my law practice, in my coaching practice, and in dealing with them. And now all over the world, I've helped lots and lots of you, millions of you through this channel. And I know how to help you too. So number one, steal boundaries. Steal boundaries. Make sure you set and establish clear boundaries. One of the things I say, if you want to make that power switch, you want to turn it all around. Step one, don't run. Step two, make a U-turn. Step three, break free. You want to turn it around. I know you do. You want to stop being on the defensive. You want to start being on the offensive. If you want to do that, you need to set and establish clear boundaries. Protect yourself from that manipulation tactic. You want to stop those fumes from coming in, those toxic fumes. You're breathing toxic air constantly. If you want to start to heal, you want to start to move on, then you've got to set limits on that noxious fumes coming into your lungs, right? Stop the time and energy that you're investing into somebody who's not going to invest it back into you. Don't invest anything more. Shut down those interactions with them. Set and establish clear boundaries, and then never allow them to cross. That's number one. Number two, practice self-care. Self-care, prioritize yourself, your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, your breathing techniques. You're taking time for yourself. Engage in activities that you enjoy. I say I never allow my thoughts to be unsupervised. I take time for myself. Meditation, spending time with people who lift me up. Rumi has a saying, set your world on fire. Seek those who fan your flames. Make sure you do that. Are the people in your life fanning your flames, or are they dousing your fire? Are they throwing logs on your fire, or are they pouring water on your fire? What are they doing? All right. Practice self-care. I have a whole video, by the way, on self-care when it comes to dealing with narcissists. You might want to check that out. Number three is developing self-awareness. Be careful about your triggers. You know how they trigger you. So if you know that they are triggering you, I try to say, let it go by you. Just watch it go by and go, okay, I just saw that happen. And I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to trigger me. And just remember that dealing with a narcissist is like getting arrested. Everything you can do or say, it will be used against you. They will definitely use everything against you. So understand that your reactions, how you respond, everything they say will consciously be used against you. They're going to accuse you of being the manipulative one. Don't get drawn in. They go fishing and they bait you in. So don't allow it. That's number three. Number four, don't engage in those power struggles. Imagine if something's pushing on you and you push back and you're pushing against. If you say, I'm not going to let them win, I can't let them win. Well, they're saying the same thing. You got to be smarter than that. You've got to be way more tactical, way more strategic than that. So they thrive on that control. They thrive on that dominance. That's what they're trying to do. Don't get into those power struggles. Don't get into those arguments with them. That's down here. That's low energy. You focus on yourself, your emotional balance instead. Disengage. You're like a gray rock. Okay. I see you. You're lovely. Got it. The shorter the words of the answer, the better. It drives them absolutely crazy. And I have a whole video, by the way, on how to respond to narcissistic text messages. Should definitely check that out, right? So, and if you guys can do this so far, say, I can do this in the comments. I can do this. So we're only halfway through. Seek support from others. Seek support from your friends. Seek support from your family. Seek support from people who are going to lift you up. You know how you feel when you're coming away from people. Do you come away from people feeling better, or do they make you feel worse? Don't be around people who are making you feel worse. Be around people who make you feel better, and get help. If you need therapy, we have a sponsor on this channel, BetterHelp. Go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung and get the help and support you need. We receive commissions, doesn't cost you one single penny extra. We just want you to have help and support from services that are trusted. And join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. And next thing is practice assertiveness and effective communication. Effective communication doesn't look like defending yourself. You never ever defend yourself. And it doesn't look like you have to write a tome every single time they send you something. You know, like I said, shorter is better. But sometimes you can just write back yes or no. Use I statements rather than you. Stay calm. Never justify, overshare, never explain. Use facts. Pretend like you're reporting the news. You know, I always say, pretend like you're reporting the news. I see that you are upset. You seem to be angry, rather than getting caught up in their drama, trauma, and chaos. You know, when you do that, you know, it drives them absolutely nuts. And by the way, I have whole phrases for disarming narcissists, which you can download and get for free at disarmthenarc.com. So go grab those, disarmthenarc.com, and start using those when you're responding to narcissists, disarmthenarc.com. All right. When you develop a strong sense of self-worth, which is number 7, it is the narcissist kryptonite, because they have no sense of self-worth. They don't like when people have a strong sense of self-worth. When you know who you are, when you have confidence in yourself, when you have positive qualities, it resists their attempt to undermine your self-esteem. And then there's nowhere they can go. When you cultivate a strong sense of who you are, they can't prey on you anymore. They prey on people who have a low sense of self-esteem, who they can manipulate. And then finally, the last one is educate yourself. That's why you're doing this. That's why you come here to channels like this, you know, and follow me on my podcast. I have a whole podcast too, by the way. Make sure you subscribe to that. Negotiate Your Best Life. Expand your knowledge about narcissism through books, articles, credible resources. Understand the dynamics and tactics used by narcissists. You know, that way you can respond more effectively and remain untriggered. All of these things will help you to remain untriggered.